Begin today the Gemara on the second line from the top of Daf Samach Beis Amud Aleph, where it says Ihachi. So the Gemara here will continue to discuss a pasuk that was mentioned before regarding Erechin. By Erechin, the pasuk says, Ish Dabab Bnei Yisrael. What does it say there? Just a moment. The Gemara brought the pasuk before on Daf Samach Aleph Amud Aleph. So the pasuk there says, Dabab Bnei Yisrael v'amarta aleim Ish ki yafli neder be'erkecha nefashos Hashem. So before, the Gemara explained what we learn out from this, that it said, Dabar al Bnei Yisrael, comes to exclude Goyim. Then the Gemara also explained what we learn out from this, that it says Ish, that we actually do include Goyim. The Gemara explained that regarding one aspect we include Goyim, and regarding one aspect we exclude Goyim. The Gemara is going to bring it soon again, we'll see, right over here. Yeah, and then the Gemara, so here the Gemara is going to go back on that and ask that it's not, the drasha, the way it was explained before, is difficult to understand. Okay, Zok the Gemara on the top of Samach Beis Amud Aleph. Ihachi. Now, some take out the word Ihachi because the Ihachi is not really in place here, because it's not really a continuation from the Gemara before. The Gemara is just asking a question on this concept. What did we say? Ish ki yafli neder be'erkecha. When it says in the pasuk the word Ish, that comes to include a guy in a certain aspect of the halacha of Erechin. So, be'erechin, that it says in the Torah, be'erechin lamali. Why do we need to have this extra word to include a guy in this? Mechti, let's see. Basically, what the Gemara is going to say right now is the fact that a guy is included in Erechin could be learned out already from somewhere else. From where? Because ha'iskish Erechin l'nedarim. The halachas of Erechin is compared to the halachas of nedarim. The Makra, the pasuk by Erechin says, Ish ki yafli neder be'erkecha. When it uses the lashon by erkecha, which is a neder that a person makes to give a certain value of a certain person based on his age or his gender, he's going to give it a hektish, but the Torah uses the term neder. So from that we learn out that the halachas of Erechin, which is a kind of neder, is compared to all the halachas of nedarim. Now, regarding nedarim, it already says in a braise, Ish matamad loima. What does it say? Ish regarding a neder as well. Over there, also the Torah writes this extra word Ish. So Ish lerabes as a oividei kechavim. Ish by a neder comes to include a guy as well. Sheheim noidrin nedarim unedavis ki Yisrael. That they are also able to donate or to dedicate or to make a vow to give karbonis like Yidden. So the nedarim and nedavis that it's talking about over here regarding a guy is specifically regarding bringing karbonis. Okay, so the point is that by nedarim we learn out from the extra word ish that a guy is included. If so, if Erechin is compared to nedarim, even without the extra word ish that it says by Erechin, I would already learn out Erechin from nedarim to say as well that it has to be that in a certain aspect, goyim are included in the halacha of Erechin. Why do you need again the Torah to write the extra word ish by Erechin itself to tell me that a guy is included? So ish ki yafli be'erechin lamali. Why is the Torah writing that extra word of ish by Erechin separately if it could be learned from nedarim? Ella, so therefore the Gemara says, we'll have to say it differently than what it says in the Braise before, that Ish is coming to include a guy. Hi Ish, mi bayale, this extra word here, Ish, that it says by Erechin, what it's needed for is, le'isuye mufla samoch le'ish. It's coming to tell me that even a person, a guy that's, or actually sorry, not a guy, we're not talking at this point in the Gemara, we're not talking about a guy, rather this is talking about every single Yid. The fact that a person, when he comes to the age of 12, and he's able to make a neder even from that age forward, not only from the age of being a gadol, from being bar mitzvah, but even from the age of mufla samach leish. That's what the Torah is coming to teach me with their extra ish that it writes by nedarim. So it writes the ish by Erechin, it writes the ish by nedarim an extra time to tell me that even a mufla samach leish could also make a neder. Says the Gemara, Hani chalaman dama mufla samach leish deiraisa. This is a good answer for the opinion that says that this halacha, that when you come to age 12, you're close to being a ish, close to being bar mitzvah, you can make a neder that this is halacha minat Torah, so I can say that this is the source, the extra word ish here. But there's another opinion that says that this whole concept, that when you make a neder at that age, that it takes effect, is all just midrabanan, so that's not what this pasuk is coming to include here. So ish ki yafli lamali. So the question comes back, what is the extra word ish ki yafli coming to say? Why does it have to say once by nedarim and another time by Erechin? So the Gemara answers, according to this opinion, the pasuk is actually coming to tell me that by a guy, when he comes to the age of 12, his neder will take effect even minat Torah, which is a very interesting thing, because what this basically means is that by a yid, when he makes this neder and he's in mufla samach leish, it does not take effect minat Torah, only with the rabbanan. But the extra ish is saying that not only could a guy make a neder to dedicate a carbon, but even if he makes it from the age of mufla samach leish, it will take effect minat Torah. So the Rishayim here explained the reason is a yid, the fact that he has to keep his nedarim is bound to, or it's based on, the pasuk of lo yachal devarei, that he's not allowed to desecrate his words, and therefore that only applies to a gadol, which is a bardas, and he's a bar oinshin. So that's the age that he's chayiv, not before that. By a guy though, the fact that he can make a neder is not connected to the lav of lo yachal devarei. So therefore, by a guy we darshan that not only from the age of being a gadol, but even before that, he can also make a neder, and regarding bringing a carbon, that will take effect. Okay, but now the Gemara comes back.
What does it mean that
what?
And
if it's only midrabanan, if mufla samach leish is only midrabanan, yeah. If it's only midrabanan, chachamim were geyser that when you come to an age of 12 and you're able to understand the neder that you make, that the neder takes effect. So then we can't say that that's the drasha of the pasuk, because that's only because it's only midrabanan.
No, but the Titus says it's an extra word ish.
True, but that mandama held that ish is used for something else. It can't be this, because he holds that it's only midrabanan. So the Gemara therefore concludes and says it has to be referring to a guy. So the Gemara now. So what did we just say? The conclusion here is that we're using this extra ish to say that not only could a guy donate a carbon and be mayrech also donate regarding erechin. The fact that a guy is included in erechin is not only at the age when he's a gadol, but it's also from the age of 12 years old, mufla samach leish. Okay, so now let me just remind you what we learned in the previous daf, when the Gemara there explained that a guy is included in the parsha of erechin. The way the Gemara explained it before was, what this means is a guy actually cannot accept upon himself to donate the value of the erech in this parsha of erechin, which is what the Gemara before called ma'arichin. He's accepting upon himself to give this. Rather, a guy is only included in the ne'erachin. If a yid will use a guy as the subject of whose value he wants to give, that a guy is included, that the yid will have to give. That's what we said before. Now the Gemara is going to here bring from another place that there's actually a machlokes about this. When we say that a guy is included in erechin, does it mean that the guy is included, like I just said, that the guy could be the subject of this erech that the yid is giving? Or no, the guy is included that he could donate. He cannot be the subject that is used to give his erech, but actually he could donate the erech. So there's a machlokes about this. So the Gemara now will explain that this drasha we just said, that we're coming to say that even a mufla samach leish is included by a guy to give the erech, that will only make sense according to one mandama. Let's see in the words of the Gemara. Now this will only be understood according to the opinion that says that Bnei Yisrael nerachim, that Yidden, they are able to be used for their value, that they are going to be that subject of the value that you're going to give the erech to the Beis Hamikdash. But a guy cannot be used. You can't say that I'm giving the value of this guy. Now, I would think that a guy cannot take upon himself to give the value of the erech in this parasha of erechin. Talmud loyma ish. So the extra word of ish comes to tell me that a guy could accept upon himself to give. So now shaper. So now that makes sense to say that now when we have, with the fact that we have an extra word ish, because it says ish once by nedarim, and then it says again ish by erechin, it's coming to tell me not only could a guy that's already a gadol accept upon himself to give this erech, but even a guy that's a mufla hasamach leish, he could also accept upon himself to give this erech. But according to the other opinion, which actually was what the opinion that was already quoted before on Daf Samach Aleph, that Bnei Yisrael ma'arichin, that Yidden could accept upon themselves to dedicate this erech. But a guy cannot accept upon himself to give any erech at all. Now, and we say regarding what aspect is a guy included in the parasha of erechin, that yachal yuned, I would think that he can't be the subject of the erech. Talmud loyma ish, that that the Torah says ish, that you could give the erech of the the guy could be the subject of the erech, meaning you could give the erech of who he is. That's according to this man Doma. Now the question is, if the whole inclusion of a guy in the parsha of Erechin is just the fact that a yid could use the body of a guy as the subject of the Erechin, so then why do I need an extra pasuk to tell me that that includes even a guy which is at the age of mufla hasamach leish? Afil tinik ben chaydesh bar eruchihu. When it comes to using a person that his value I'm going to give to hektish, that's even if the person that you're using him as the subject that you're going to give his value, that's even from the age of a child that's a month old. So if so why over here do I have to say, so kiyafli lamali? Why does it Torah say again over here this pasuk of ish kiyafli a second time to tell me that even the guy which is a mufla samach leish, he's also included in the parsha of Erechin? That doesn't make sense according to this man Amar. So the Gemara says, you're right. So Amar Ravada bar Ava says another pshat. La esuye ovid kechavim godel. What the extra word ish, it says once by nedarim and once by erechin. The reason why it says twice the lashon of ish, it's coming to say that when we include a guy, we're including a guy which is a godel. The afagav the godelhu, that even though he is a godel, but ve'ena yedeya, the Bacher I think adds over here the ve'ena yedeya because it goes together. Yeah, ve'ena yedeya lahaflois. This godel, he's a guy which is a godel, but he doesn't have the knowledge to understand what his words mean when he makes a neder. But nevertheless, his neder will still take effect. Or actually, the way the Rishonim learn this is the opposite of what I just said. What the Rishonim say is that now what the Gemara is actually saying is, it's the Gemara learned out before by the parsha of Erechin that when it says Daber el Bnei Yisrael is coming to exclude a guy, right? But then when it said Ish, the Gemara said before, what is the Ish coming to say? It's coming to include a guy. But now the Gemara is actually reversing this. The Gemara is saying that if it would only say Daber el Bnei Yisrael, I only have one limud to exclude a guy. When it adds the word Ish, it comes to tell me that I exclude every guy. Even a ish, even a guy that's eina yedeya lahafleis, that doesn't know what the words he says means. What is the Gemara trying to say over here? There's two kinds of people. That there are already a gadol. Even when a person is already at the age of an adult, there could be a person that's an adult and he makes a neder and he knows what he's saying. Then there's a person that makes a neder as an adult, but he doesn't understand what he's saying, b'chlal. So if the Torah would only give me one exclusion of a guy, I would say maybe we're only excluding a guy that's any yedei lahafleis, that doesn't know what he's saying. So there's sort of two chesronos he has. Number one, he's a guy, and number two, he doesn't know what he's saying. That's the person that the pasuk comes to exclude. So the Torah writes not only Daber el Bnei Yisrael, but it writes again the word ish to say that when we're excluding a guy, it's excluding every guy. That's a gadol, that is. Any guy that will try to accept upon himself a erech, whether he's a guy that doesn't know what he's talking about, and therefore there's two chesronos to this guy, whether it's a guy that does know what he's talking about, it doesn't matter. He's also excluded from the parasha of Erechin. So that's why the Torah is writing this word ish to clarify that the exclusion of a guy in the pasuk of Daber el Bnei Yisrael includes every ish. That means every guy, no matter what his level of awareness is. Hashenkim by a yid, by the way, by a yid the halacha is once he's a gadol and he makes a neder, it doesn't make a difference if you understood what he said or not. If you ask this gadol, a yid that makes a neder, and you ask him afterwards, do you understand what you just said? And he says no, he didn't chapsach what he's saying. It doesn't make a difference. The neder takes effect. Right? By a guy though, once we're memayitim, there would be a svara maybe to be mechalik that if he doesn't know what he says, does it not take effect? So therefore we need two drashas to say that either way it does not take effect. Okay, now the Gemara goes on to the next part of the pasuk, right? We were just focusing on the word ish. Now, right afterwards, it says in the pasuk, ish kiyafli. So again, the Gemara has a similar question. Why does it have to say here kiyafli if it already uses the same lashon of kiyafli once by nedarim and once by erechin? Or I think once it says kiyafli by naziris actually, once it says it by naziris and once by erechin. Why does it have to say it twice if they're compared to each other? Sagt the Gemara, Sana Elo, Kiyafli, the cost of Rachmana Gabi Naziros, the words Kiyafli that it says in the Torah by Naziros, Lamali, why does it have to say it here? Mechti, let's see. Ha'eskish Naziros, Lenedarim. Naziris is compared to Nedarim. And now, what the Gemara really means to say is that Nedarim is also compared to Erechin. Some actually put it into the Gemara here in the Girse. So if they're all compared to each other, And by Erechin, the Torah uses the term Kiyafli. Why does it have to say it a second time by Nazirus? So Kiyafli Lomali. Why does it have to say it again? Answers the Gemara, La Suye, the Kiyafli that it says again comes to tell me Yodayim she'enon mechichais. It's coming to tell me the halacha regarding Erechin of Yodayim she'enon mechichais. That what's the concept of Yodayim she'enon mechichais? So this takes us back to the beginning of the Masechta, where it spoke about a person that uses a language to say that he accepts upon himself a Naziros or a Erech, and it's not clear what he meant to say. It's Einon mechichais. But it's a certain handle. It is a certain lashon that's mashma that he wants to accept upon himself Naziris, but it's not clear. Right? So the Torah is writing this an extra time to tell me the halacha regarding these yadayim when he uses this language that's not clear. Now, what's the halacha with this yadayim? Itmar, we learned the machlokes about this. Yadayim shein and mechicha is a person uses this language, which is like a handle that's not clear. Abaya ma havyon yadayim. Abaye says that it's accepted as a handle, meaning that it's accepted as language that the Naziris will take effect. The Gemara brought examples for this in the beginning of Masechta. What kind of language we're talking about? If let's say, do you remember? We had, let's say, a person says, "Hey, I'll be," and there's a Nazir walking in front of him, something like that. You remember? Mm-hmm. Okay. Rava Omar. Rava says, "Lo yavin yadayim." No, if you say such a kind of a lashon, which is not clear, it's not a handle. The Naziris does not take effect. Okay. So now there's a machlokes in the Rishonim over here. What the Gemara means to say. This extra kiyafli, according to some Rishonim, the Gemara means to say that from the extra kiyafli we learn out that the yadayim she'enon mechichais is not going to be yadayim. What does the word yafli mean? Yafli means that you have to spell it out clearly. So therefore, yadayim she'enon mechichais. If you didn't say it clearly, it's not good enough. Other Rishonim they'll say no, opposite. Because the Torah wrote kiyafli twice, there's a rule that says ribuy achar ribuy eina ela lamayit. When you have a double ribuy, a double lashon to include, that means that really the Torah means to exclude. So over here, actually, what the Torah is coming to say is that yadayim she'enon mechichais, again, miyut achamiyut. Did I just say ribuy achar ribuy? I meant to say the opposite. Let me repeat that again. Miyut achamiyut. When you have a double exclusion, right? Because the Torah is writing yafli. It's saying it must be clear, excluding if it's not clear. When it writes a double exclusion, it really means to be marbe. And if that's the case, then this double kiyafli is actually coming to tell me that yadayim she'enon mechichais is yadayim. So that's machlokes Rishonim, which way it goes, and that also affects the continuation of the Gemara here. Let's see. So now the Gemara asks, so we have a machlokes between Abaye and Rava about this. Le Abaye niche. According to Abaye that says havyon yadayim, so then it's understood. So but according to Rava, the kiyafli here is still extra. So the gersa that we have over here in the Gemara is going according to this second opinion that I just explained, that because it's a double miyot, so therefore the kiyafli is actually coming to be marbe, like Abaye said, that even though it's unclear, havyon yadayim, that it's good. But other Rishonim, as I said in the first pshat before, say the reverse. No. According to Rava, it makes sense, because the kiyafli is actually an exclusion. The Yafli is coming to say that if it's unclear, so then it's not Yadayim. So the way to read the Gemara really is the opposite. That l'Rava niche, but l'Abaye the question is, what does this extra Kiyafli come to teach me? So the Gemara says, El Kiyafli, according to one of these opinions, that it's still extra. When it says Kiyafli here by a Naziros, it's coming to tell me the halacha that Rav Tarfon said, and we also had this earlier in the Masechta. Tanya, we learned earlier in the Masechta, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda said, Mishum Rav Tarfon, the name of Rav Tarfon. The case over there was, we had this before, that two people were standing together, and someone's coming towards them, and one says to his friend, this guy walking towards us is Reuven, and if he's Reuven, I accept upon myself Naziris. The other guy says, no, he's Shimon, and if he's Shimon, I accept upon myself Naziris. Turns out one of them is right. So B'Pashtus, the one that's right, has to accept Naziris upon himself. Rav Tarfon says, no, none of them are going to be a Nazir. Because while you said your acceptance of Naziros, it wasn't clear if you're right or not. Naziros, when you say the words that you're accepting Naziros upon yourself, it has to be clear, b'shas ma'isa, when you're saying it, that what you're saying is true. So therefore, Rav Tarfon says, Ein echad mehem Nazir. None of them are going to be a Nazir, because the Naziros only takes effect for a person that spells it out clearly, that while he's saying it, it's clear that he will be a Nazir. But this only gets clarified later. All right, and the truth is, according to some opinions, this would apply really to any condition that you put into a acceptance of Naziros. Right? And it depends which kind of condition it is, but many situations where you accept upon yourself Nazirus with a certain condition, and it's not clear if that condition is going to be fulfilled, so it's not Nazirus. That's what Tiki Yafli is coming to teach me according to Rab Tarfon. Says the Gemara, okay, well that's only Rab Tarfon. Rab Tarfon. So we could explain the extra Kiyafli according to Rab Tarfon. But the Rabbanan that argue with Rab Tarfon, what will they learn out from the extra Kiyafli? Says the Gemara, third pshat. What they needed for is Likiditanya, for this that we learned in a Braisa. Or Likiditnan, others say that this is a Mishnah. This is a Mishnah in Masechta Chagiga actually. So over there it says, Hete Nedarim Parchim Ba'aver. The entire concept that a Chacham could be mater a neder, there's no clear source for this in the pasuk, and therefore it's like suspended in the air. Chachamim found some kind of a source, but it's not really a good source. It doesn't have a proper pasuk to rely upon. The Gemara there says in Chagiga that it's learned out from Lo Yachal Devarai, that a person may not desecrate his own words, but a Chacham could be mater it. But it's not a clear drasha. But Rabbi Eliezer says, Yesh lama mashi yismeichu. It does have a clear source in the pasuk, and that's this pasuk we're talking about. Shenema ish kiyafli shtei pa'amim. The Torah repeated the words kiyafli once by Erechin and once by Naziris. Why does it say it twice? Echad afla le'isr. By Erechin, it's saying the afla for the Isser, that when you accept upon yourself Naziris, you have to spell out the words to accept it. But v'echad afla leheter. The second time, it's telling you that when you come to the Chacham to be mater your Naziris, or to be mater your neder, so then again, you have to clarify and tell him exactly what it is that you said. So the extra kiyafli is teaching me this halacha that a Chacham could be mater the neder or the Naziris. Okay, the next Mishnah and Daf Samach Beis Amud Beis goes back to what we learned in the beginning of the Perek. The beginning of the Perek said that both women and avodim, Evet Kanani, could accept upon themselves Nazirus. The previous Mishnah said that by a woman, her acceptance of Nazirus is more stringent. Here, it brings the reverse. Sagt the Mishnah, there's a stringency by avodim that accept Nazirus more than women. Shehu meife nidre ishtei. That a husband could nullify the vows of his wife, including the Nazirus. But a man that owns a master, that owns an Eved, cannot nullify the Nidarim or the Nazirus of his slave. So the Mishnah, a husband that nullified the Nazirus of his wife, so this nullification is forever. Even if he divorces her or he dies, doesn't matter. The nullification is forever. Now here when the Mishnah says Hafer la'avdai, it doesn't literally mean that he nullified the Nazirus of his Eved, because we just said he can't. Hafer la'avdai means, so it said in the previous Mishnah, that even though a master can't nullify the Eved's Nazirus, but he could force him to drink wine anyways. So now, if he's forcing his slave to drink wine, but that's only while he's a slave. Yatzel lechedos, if he got freed, so then mashlim nazirusai. Then he is going to have to make up his nazirus. Meaning the fact that a master could force his eved to drink wine and not to keep his nazirus, what that means is the master is able to sort of suspend it. But the moment he becomes free, he's going to be obligated to keep his nazirus. So here, this Gemara will explain what's this concept that a master could force an eved to drink wine, even though he can't nullify the nazirus. It's still upon him, but he could still force him to drink wine, not to keep his nazirus, or not only to drink wine, but to eat the thing, fruit from whatever comes from a grapevine. So Tan Rabbana, we learned in Abraisa. Lama Rabbi Koifai Nazirus. What's the difference here? Why do we find this halacha specifically regarding nazirus, that a master is able to force his eved not to keep his nazirus, to eat from a grapevine? But if an eved takes upon himself any other kind of a neder or erechin, also a type of neder, there the master cannot force him not to keep it. And the Gemara's question is, what's the difference? This, that a master could force his eved not to keep his nazirus, what is this based on? The Amar Rachmana. The Torah says, Lesar Isar al Nafshay, that you accept upon yourself, al Nafshay, this nazirus. What does this mean? We learn from here, that you can only accept this upon yourself, and you'll be obligated to keep it if your nefesh is acquired by you. You own yourself. You have control over yourself. Nobody has any rights over you. So then you're going to have to keep your nazirus. Yotza evet, so therefore that excludes an evet, shay nafshe knuyulai. You're not owned by yourself. You're owned by a master. If your master needs you to eat, to have kayach, to do work, you're going to have to listen to your master. That's what we're learning it out from. If so, that very same pasuk should be used for a neder as well. Let's say the same thing for a neder as well. And actually, this pasuk of Lesa Isal Nafshay is not even written by Naziris. It's written by the parasha of Nedarim. So I should say by neder as well. And Evet takes upon himself his neder. Why can't the master come and nullify, or not nullify, but at least force the Evet not to keep those nedarim because he's not owned by himself? He's owned by his master. So what's the difference between nedarim and Naziris? Amar Rav Sheishes, so Rav Sheishes explains as follows. Basically, the point Rav Sheishes is going to try to explain over here is Naziris gets in the way of the master that needs the Evet to work for him. But Nedarim doesn't get in the way of the master. Why not? Because Hacha b'mayaskinan. What are we talking about over here? Kagoin shahaya eshkol shel anavim munach lefanav. You have a eshkol, what's the word for eshkol in English? A cluster of grapes that's right in front of him, like we have right over here now on the table. I don't know who brought this. So we have a cluster of grapes that's here on the table, and he has it in front of the Eved. So gabe nedarim. So what's the halacha by nedarim? The chimitzer b'hai. If an Eved would make a vow that I'm not eating from these grapes, so you can't eat from these grapes. But that doesn't mean he can't eat from any other grapes. So he still could eat. So therefore, the master cannot force him to eat these grapes. The master can't say, if you're not going to eat, you're going to have no koyach. If you won't eat from these grapes, he'll eat from other grapes. In other words, the point is that in this sense, it is al nafsha. He is in his own possession. He has the right to say, I don't want to eat these grapes. It doesn't disturb the master's control over him. However, when it comes to Naziris, if he says, I'm not going to eat from, I'm a Nazir, he can't eat from any grapes. Not only this, he can't eat any grapes at all. So therefore now he won't be able to eat. So motzi kafilei. So over here, the master will be able to force him to eat the grapes in order to have kayach to do his work. That's the distinction. Frakte Gemara, but this is difficult to understand. V'gabe nedarim. But even by the case of nedarim, mi lo yaskinon, can't it be that the case is the leke elahai eshkal? That right now, all that's available for this evet to eat is this one cluster of grapes. And if the slave is not going to eat it, he's going to be weak and he won't be able to work. So allowing this Evet to keep his neder, it does come in the way of the master. It's not nafshay. So why are we making this distinction between Naziros and Nedarim? So the Gemara tries a little bit differently. Elo marove, or there's a great the Bach says, Elo ma'abaye, kogoin shahaya chartzen monach lefanav. The case over here is, there's no grapes here. All there is chartzen. Now chartzen is either grape seeds or grape skins. That's all that's here in front of him on the table. So now the Gemara's assumption at this point is, if you only have grape seeds or grape skins on the table, that's not something that will give this Eved any nutrition or any kayach. So by Nedarim, I say that if all the Evet said is, I make a neder not to eat from these chartzen, b'hayu de mitzer, so he's not only not going to be able to eat this chartzen, lematzi kafile. So the master cannot force him not to keep this because this is irrelevant to the master. It's a neder which will not weaken the Evet from doing his work for the master. Anyways, gives him no nutrition. By Nazir, however, when it comes to a Nazir, when he accepts upon himself Naziris, so not only can't he eat these grape skins or grape seeds, he can't eat anything from the grapevine. So therefore, over here, this will disturb the master of the Evet doing the work for the master, therefore you could force him. But the Gemara doesn't accept this either. And the Gemara says, V'gabe nedarim, but now, even by nedarim, mi lo yaskinan. Can't it be that the case over here is the leke ela hai chartzen? All there is available for this Evet to eat right now is either these grape seeds or grape skins. If he's not going to eat even this, chalesh will be weak. In other words, yeah, true, it's very little, but this is all he has available to eat for him right now, and therefore he has to eat at least this to give him some kayach. So even by a neder, the master should have a right to nullify the neder. So therefore the Gemara now brings a completely different shot. Ela Omar Abaye, or the Girsa of the Bach is Ela Omar Rove. Really what we're saying over here is the other way around. Till here the assumption of the Gemara was that by a neder, the master can't force the Evet to break his neder. By a Naziros, he could. Now the Gemara is going to say that it really works in the reverse. By a neder, when an Evet takes upon himself a neder, the neder never takes effect in the first place. By Nazirus, the Nazirus takes effect, but the master could force him, if necessary, to break the Nazirus. Let's see. So he says, why is it that by Nazirus, when the Eved accepts upon himself the Nazirus, it takes effect? And now the master will have to force him to break that Nazirus. But the master will not have to force the Evet to break his neder or to break the Shvuah. Why not? Because by a neder and a Shvuah, it doesn't take effect in the first place. What's the difference? My time it, because the pasuk says by a neder lahara oilahativ, that when you make a neder, it could be for the negative, to refrain, or for the positive, to eat, to do something. What do we learn from these words? Ma hatove. So we learn two things. Number one, ma hatove rishos afara rishos. Just like hatove means that you're doing something which is beneficial for you, it's something that's permissible. Afara rishos. So too, when you say that you're going to refrain from something, the neder only takes effect if it's in the area of rishos. Now, yotza lahara la'achedim she'ena rishos biyadei. Okay, so it's really all one big drush over here. But now this comes to exclude a situation where a person makes a neder, which is something that will cause a something negative or harm for someone else. An Eved that takes upon himself a neder, and this will affect his master, that he won't be able to work properly for the master, the neder doesn't take effect in the first place, because it's not a concept of rishos. You can't make a neder that affects someone else. Now this is a specific drasha b'negei neder, but by Nazirus we don't apply this drasha. Some Rishonim say that by Nazirus we know that this drasha doesn't apply because of what the Gemara said in the beginning of the Perek, that it says va'amarta aleihem. And Aleya means that there is Nazirus by an Eved, and therefore by an Eved, the Nazirus will take effect, but the master has the right to tell the Eved to break the Nazirus if it's necessary. Zok Teilege Mishneh, continuing on this halacha of the master and his Eved.
What was the limit that the Eved had to make a neder?
V'amarta Aleim. That's like what I just mentioned. V'amarta, it says Dabab Bnei Yisrael, but then afterwards it says V'amarta Aleim. Those extra words means to include even an Eved.
And he could make it.
Yes, correct. But still, the master will be able to force him to break it if it's a situation that's b'negei to nedarim. By nedarim, we have the drasha. Yeah, but Nazirus is a separate parsha. Nazirus. We usually compare nedarim and Nazirus to each other, but lahara and laheitiv is written specifically by the parsha of nedarim. And by the parsha of Nazirus, we have a ribuy v'amarta aleim that an Eved could take upon himself Nazirus. So therefore we don't apply this drasha of lahara laheitiv to Nazirus.
Nazirus.
Correct.
But why do we say that by a neder that he's able
it does
to
not.
make
No, he can't. According to the conclusion of the Gemara here, which is Abaye or Rava, and an Eved cannot make a neder in the first place because the neder will affect his master negatively. So it's Eina Rishus B'Yada. You can't do the Harala Chayrim.
Different than the Mishnah.
Correct? No, different. No, it's different than what we thought in the beginning of the Braisa. The Mishnah itself never clearly made any distinction between Nedarim and Naziris. The Braisa, the Gemara brought in the beginning, Ton Rabbanon Loma Rabbe Koifel and Naziris Avaloy Nedarim. So in the beginning we thought that meant that the neder does take effect, but the master can't force him to break it. Now the Gemara is saying what the Braisa means to say is that by a neder you don't have to force, because the neder doesn't take effect in the first place. It's a new pshat that the Gemara is saying now in that Braisa. Mishnah, continuing regarding the master and his slave. Ovar mikeneged ponov. What happens if the Eved leaves his master? He basically ran away. So Rab Meir says, Lo yishte. So because he ran away, so now if he took upon himself Nazirus, so he's going to have to keep his Nazirus. He can't drink wine. And that's even if his master told him that he should drink wine before he left, or he should drink with whatever, or eat whatever comes from a grapevine. But that's only when he's with his master. But if he ran away, so then he has to keep his Nazirus. Rabbi Yossi says yishte. No, he could drink wine. He could eat from a grapevine, even if he ran away from his master. So the Gemara will explain here this machlekes. Dr. Gemara, shall we say the machlekes of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi is in this concept that Shmuel said? Shmuel said, "Mafke avdei." A person that frees his slave. What does it mean, freeze? He didn't really free him properly, but he just declared his slave to be hefker, ownerless. So with that itself, yotza lechedes, he goes free. And the ain't tzarich get shichro. You're not going to have to additionally give him the usual document, a get, that frees him. Usually you have to give him a proper document that says in it, Hareyat Arat Meshuchrer, or whatever lashon you use. But over here, once you declared him to be hefker, you don't have to additionally free him. That's what Shmuel said. Right, now you have to understand, when you free a slave, you're really accomplishing two things. Number one, you're making him independent, as far as the monetary ownership of his obligation, that he doesn't have to work for his master. But there's another thing that takes place also. He now becomes a full yid. He's allowed to marry a Bas Yisrael, Bas Chayren. So what Shmuel says is, even though usually you have to give a proper get shikhr, similar to a get that's given to a isha, but once he's declared to be hefker, you don't have to. So now, what happened over here regarding our Mishnah? This Eved ran away. So at this point, the Gemara understands, when the Eved runs away, it's equivalent to being mafkir an Eved. Just like when you mafkir him, so he's hefker, so too over here, when he ran away, the Adain is miyayish, he gives up, and he becomes hefker. So now Rab Meir is Shmuel. Rab Meir agrees to what Shmuel says, that once he ran away, he's totally hefker, so he's totally free. Once he's totally free, we already learned in the previous Mishnah that once he becomes free, he has to start keeping his Naziris again. Rabbi Yosi, less like the Shmuel. Rabbi Yosi disagrees to what Shmuel said. Rabbi Yosi says that even after the Eved ran away, true, he's sort of hefker, but he's not properly freed yet. He still needs a get shikhr. So therefore, if he's still an Eved, he doesn't have to keep his Naziris. Says the Gemara, we don't have to say that there's an argument about this. The Kulal Islu de Shmuel. Everybody could agree to what Shmuel said, that really when you're mafkir an Eved, or when he ran away, he should be able to be free. But Ella, what's the argument here? Manda Mayishte, the one that says that he doesn't have to keep his Naziris, meaning that he's still an Eved. The reason is, Savar, he holds, Sav Mehedev Ahadar, Va'asi Gabei. This Eved ran away, but that doesn't mean that he's not coming back. He's going to come back. Eventually, he's going to come back to his master. So therefore, what Rab Meir says is as follows. Lishti Chamra, we tell this Eved, listen, once your master was told you that do not keep your Naziros, and the master has the power to say that, so let him drink wine or eat from grapevines, so he shouldn't be weak. Whatever day he'll show up to come back to his master, we want him to have koyach. So he still belongs to his master, and whenever he shows up, he has to have the koyach to eat from grapevines. So that's the point. He's going to show up again. But Rabbi Yosi that says that no, that if he ran away, he should not drink or eat from grapevines. What's the reason? So Bamas Rabbi Yosi also agrees to this point that he's going to show up again. He's going to return to his master. But Savar, he holds, but nevertheless, it's for the benefit of the master that this Eved should keep his Naziris at this point when he's not by his master. Why? Because Lahavi Leit Tzara, let him have to be forced to keep his Naziris now and not be able to drink from a grapevine or any wine, in order that he should feel the pain. Now that itself should cause him to come back to his master. At this point, the master wants him to keep his Naziris, so he should want to come back. That's what the Machlekes is based on.